Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pucharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatyate Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagvatam, Grantaraj Ki Jai. Let's see, I received homework from Samarth. And also from one other person. So let me just get Samarth's first. And the homework is write some examples of people who got purified very quickly by taking the shelter of the holy name of the Lord. Examples should be from scriptures. And I gave examples such as Valmiki Muni, the Hunter Migari, and Haridas Thakura. Okay, so Samarth writes, I was trying to research Haridas Thakura and the Lady of Ill Repute story, and I came across this article in our VCC webpage and wanted to share it with you. I read this story and understood how taking to the holy name under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master instantly transformed the Lady of Ill Repute into a pure devotee. Okay. And so Samarth writes, or he copied this from our webpage. Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family, but he later dedicated his life to serving Lord Chaitanya, who is the combined incarnation of Radha and Krishna. Thus he became a saintly Vaishnava. A Hindu Brahmana named Ramachandra Khan tried to defame Haridas Thakur by hiring a prostitute to make him fall down from his vow of celibacy. Haridas Thakur remained faithful to his vow of chanting over 300,000 names of Krishna every day, which amounts to 192 rounds on his beads. This is equivalent to 108 beads times because there are 108 beads in one round, times 192 times 16. There are 108 beads in one round. On each bead, one recites the entire mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There are 16 names of Krishna in each mantra. If one chants 192 rounds, so in other words, it's 108 times 16 times 192. It is equivalent to reciting over 300,000 names of God in one day. To do this, one must chant at least 23 hours a day. The prostitute approached Haridas Thakur in the evening, but she was obliged to wait until he finished his rounds for that day. For 2 consecutive days, she fell asleep before he finished, and by the time she woke up, it was the next day, and he was again chanting his rounds. During those 2 evenings, she listened to his chanting. She became somewhat purified by his pure chanting of the holy names of God. On the 3rd night, she became penitent. Penitent means she felt bad about what she was trying to do and realized that it was wrong, and revealed her sinister plan to make him break his vow of celibacy so that he would be dishonored. When the prostitute accepted to help Ramachandra Khan make Haridas Thakur fall down, she participated in Ramachandra Khan's enviousness of the saint. The best way to overcome the enviousness of someone is to render service to that person without any malice. Malice means harm or nastiness. Haridas Thakur said he knew her motive for approaching him. He blessed her to change her ways so that she could continually get the mercy of Krishna. He offered her the opportunity to live in his humble abode after she gave away in charity all the money and possessions she accumulated by her unclean activities. He recommended she shave her head, dress in simple white cloth, and begin to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in front of his holy Tulsi plant. He gave his hut to her and went away, never to come back again. The prostitute followed his advice and almost instantly was purified of her ill-intentioned effort to defame the saint. At the same time, she became famous for her complete renunciation and total dedication to chanting. She did not attempt to maintain herself. Her sincere preoccupation was chanting the holy names of Krishna. Many people came to see her, and they bought gifts of food and anything else she needed for her renounced lifestyle of a humble saint. By accepting Haridas Thakur as her guru and following his advice, the prostitute began the auspicious process of surrender to the will of God. There are 6 points on the path of surrender, also called Saranagati in Sanskrit. 1. One should accept everything favorable for executing devotional service to the Lord, anukulyasya sankalpa. 2. One should give up everything unfavorable for spiritual life, pratikulyasya varjanam. 3. One should be confident that in all circumstances, Lord Krishna will protect him or her from difficulties. Raksisyaiti vishwaso. Number 4, one should not be anxious for personal maintenance. Lord Krishna will always provide for the minimum needs of his sincere devotee. There is no need to think how one should keep his body and soul together. Number 5, one should be satisfied with whatever he receives for maintenance as Krishna's mercy. Goptritve varanam tatar. Number 6, one should always consider himself helpless and should consider Krishna the only basis for his progress in life. Atma nikshepa. The devotee accepts everything that the devotee accepts everything that happens to him as the Lord's mercy. He does not have any interest separate from Krishna. Karpanye. The prostitute gradually manifested all the 6 symptoms of full surrender. She transformed into a wonderful devotee by the mercy of Haridas Thakur and attained the stage of pure devotional service by virtue of her full dedication to hearing and chanting the holy Maha Mantra. She experienced the transcendental benefits of regularly chanting Hare Krishna with full attention. They are: 1. Pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. 2. Pure devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness. And these are the transcendental benefits of regularly engaging in pure devotional service. and in this particular case, purely chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Number 3, pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. Number 4, pure devotional service is rarely achieved, and one feels exceptionally fortunate. Number 5, those in pure devotional service deride even the conception of liberation. And number 6, pure devotional service is the only means to attract Krishna. Krishna is the supreme, all-attractive personality of Godhead. Pure devotional service rendered by a sincere devotee is so powerful that Krishna himself is attracted. It is transcendently stronger than Krishna because pure love and devotion to the Lord is his internal potency. Srimati Radharani is the epitome of pure love and devotion. She favors any devotee who serves Krishna with pure intentions to please the Lord. Okay, that's the end of Samarth's homework. Very well done, Samarth. Okay, so I didn't receive homework for anyone else. I did receive from, let's see, from Naga GT Rani Devi Dasi, homework for previous homework, and that is from the 20th of March. And that homework is, read the last 2 paragraphs of the purport of Srimad Bhagvatam 1.1.1, try and understand what it is saying, and write a brief summary. Okay. So, we begin. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura and other erudite devotees say that there are many references in Puranas which are older than Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein they refer to Srimad Bhagavatam as a Purana that has many spiritual instructions and begins with Gayatri Mantra, and that it has 18,000 verses. Padma Purana, Matsya Purana are some of those Puranas that have reference to Srimad Bhagavatam. Apart from that, all the acharyas up until the recent age have commented on Srimad Bhagavatam and accepted it as a bona fide literature, something that they wouldn't have done if it was a modern creation of Vopadeva. Some people say that there's a person named Vopadeva who wrote the Bhagavatam. Of course, that's not true. In other words, acharyas would not have bothered to write commentary on it if it was not an important work. Further, on the last paragraph of the purport of Canto 1.1.1, Srimad Bhagavatam explains, it is not possible to be impersonal and appreciate pure sex life because it requires to accept that the absolute truth is a person. Consequently, the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus, meaning indirect strength, or indirect importance, to the abominable mundane sex life, because they have overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth. In other words, by saying God is impersonal, and the highest stage of realization is impersonalism, where you're not a person, that eliminates devotional service, that eliminates everything of Krishna's relationship in the different intimate rasas, such as Santarasa, Dasya and Sakya rasa, and then Vatsalya rasa and Madhurya rasa. It negates all those things. So therefore, it therefore gives undue importance and stress on mundane sex life rather than the transcendental sex life that has nothing to do with mundane sex life. So, consequently, the impersonalist philosopher has given indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life because they have overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth. Consequently, man without information of the actual spiritual form of sex has accepted perverted material sex life as the all-in-all. The reason why mundane sex life is prevalent in this world is because it is further promoted by Mayavadi philosophers indirectly. They do this by rejecting the personality of Godhead, and so there's no possibility of understanding pure sex life. Okay, so that is not Nagnajiti Rani Devi Dasi's homework. Okay, so now we're going to continue today. We are reading from Canto 6, Chapter 2. We're still in the story of Ajamila delivered by the Vishnu Dutas. And we are on verse 15 in Canto 6, Chapter 2, verse 15. Yeah, because verse 14 says, one who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he chants indirectly to indicate something else, jokingly or for musical entertainment, or even neglectfully. This is accepted by all the learned scholars of the scriptures. Okay, so now we're beginning on verse number 15. No, that was 15. I'm sorry. Verse number 15. Yes, we're beginning with that. And verse number 15 says, if one chants the holy name of Hari and then dies because of an accidental misfortune, such as falling from the top of a house, slipping and suffering broken bones while traveling on the road, being bitten by a serpent, being afflicted with pain and high fever, or being injured by a weapon, one is immediately absolved from having to enter hellish life, even though he is sinful. Wow. Okay. So purport says, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.6, Yam yam vapi smaram bhava tijant ante kalevaram tam tam ivaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. If one practices chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, he is naturally expected to chant Hare Krishna when he meets with some accident. Even without such practice, however, if one somehow or other chants the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, when he meets with an accident and dies, he will be saved from hellish life after death. Well, there's a true story that happened in San Francisco of a man who was drinking liquor with a friend of his, and they got into a fight. Oftentimes people that take intoxication, they get unnecessarily angry. At first they're happy, and then something happens, they don't like it, and because they're not in a normal state of mind, they get exorbitantly or unnecessarily angry, and their mood can change almost immediately from being happy to being extremely angry. And so in this story from San Francisco, this happened some years ago, these two Latino men were drinking together, and they were having a good time, and then they got angry at each other for something, maybe something that was said or done. And then they got into a fight, and the fight went out into the street, and one of them was hit by a car and was seriously injured. So the police came, the medics came, the ambulance came with medics, and they were trying to administer to him, but it looks like the injury was so serious that he was dying. So because he was a Latino and Catholic, a priest was called. And the priest came right away, and he administered what's called the Last Rites, where he says different prayers and reads from the Bible. And then he asked the man who was dying, he said, "Please, sir, before you die, say this prayer, the Catholic prayer, Hail Mary, Mother of God," so forth and so on. And then the man was trying to say something. He was struggling to say something, and right before he died, he said, "Tequila," and he died. Well, tequila is a type of Latin American liquor. Like in Russia, they have vodka, and in South America, they have tequila. So the last word, he was asked to say this prayer that all Catholics know about Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus. But instead of saying anything about the Catholic prayer, he just says tequila, because he had been drinking tequila. And then he got into that fight, and then he went out into the street, and then he got hit by this car. So the last thing he thinks of is tequila. It's not Jesus Christ. So we see how dangerous intoxication is, because it can make you say crazy things and do crazy things. But devotees, if they, it says, if one chants the holy name of Hari or Krishna and then dies because of an accidental misfortune, is immediately absolved from having to enter hellish life, even though he is sinful. So then, in the purport, Prabhupada quotes 8.6, chapter 8.6 of the Bhagavad Gita, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. And then he says, if one practices chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, he is naturally expected to chant Hare Krishna when he meets some accident. Even without such practice, however, if one somehow or other chants the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, when he meets with an accident and dies, he will be saved from hellish life after death. Well, we could alter this purport to say, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. If one practices drinking every day tequila, he will most probably say tequila when he meets with some accident and dies, even without such practice. So you see, what you're going to think of at the moment of death is what you've been primarily thinking of and doing during your life. In the case of this poor Latino guy, he was a tequila drinker. So instead of saying some prayer, a Christian prayer, he said tequila at the moment of death. So therefore, it's very dangerous not to be Krishna conscious. You're almost begging the question to take birth again, and usually in a lower species, because of being irresponsible during your lifetime, wasting your time doing things that have no relationship to Krishna. Okay, text number 16. Authorities who are learned scholars and sages have carefully ascertained that one should atone for the heaviest sins by undergoing a heavy process of atonement, and one should atone for lighter sins by undergoing a lighter atonement. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, however, vanquishes all the effects of sinful activities, regardless of whether heavy or light. So this is a one solution for all problems. all the problems of life can be solved by chanting Hare Krishna. You don't have to have different strategies for nullifying sinful reactions. You just chant Hare Krishna sincerely, and all sins that you've created and the reactions to those sins will be eradicated. And in other words, chanting Hare Krishna vanquishes all the effects or defeats all the effects of sinful activities, regardless of whether heavy or light. And the purport, Prabhupada says, in this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes an incident that took place when Samba was rescued from the punishment of the Kauravas. Well, Samba was a member of Krishna's immediate family, and he's the son of Krishna and one of his wives. And so Samba fell in love with the daughter of Duryodhana. And since, according to Kshatriya custom, one is not offered a Kshatriya's daughter unless he displays his chivalrous valor, Samba abducted her. That means a Kshatriya marriage is when the Kshatriya abducts or kidnaps the woman that he wants to marry. And when he kidnaps her, usually there's a fight with the relatives. And if he wins the fight, then he can get married. And if he loses the fight, well, either he's defeated and disgraced or he's killed. So that's a Kshatriya marriage. Now, when we come down to modern times, whenever there's a Hindu marriage, the whole process is, what you would say, made very mundane. And so they don't, so they just remember that custom by stealing something from the bride's house. So the groom's family comes to the bride's house, and then they steal something, like while they're in the house. And then on the day of the marriage, they show the things that they stole. So that's like a vestige only of the original thing. Or that when the bride tries to put a garland on the husband, he tries to prop up his body while standing on his toes or something, so she can't reach his neck, or some silly things like that to show that he's a Kshatriya. However, that's not the original thing. So Samba did the original thing. He kidnapped the daughter of Duryodhana. Consequently, Samba was arrested by the Kauravas, who pursued him and his so-called bride. Later, when Lord Balaram came to rescue him, there was an argument about Samba's release. Since the argument was not settled, Balaram showed his power in such a way that all of Hastinapura trembled and would have been vanquished as if by a great earthquake. Then the matter was settled, and Samba married Duryodhana's daughter. The purport is that one should take shelter of Krishna Balarama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose protective power is so great that it cannot be equaled in the material world. However powerful the reactions of one's sins, they will immediately be vanquished if one chants the name of Hari, Krishna, Balaram, or Narayana. Okay, so this is to help us understand the power, the purifying power of the holy name of the Lord. Text 17. Although one may neutralize the reactions of sinful life through austerity, charity, vows, and other such methods, these pious activities cannot uproot the material desires in one's heart. However, if one serves the lotus feet of the Personality of Godhead, he is immediately freed from all such contaminations. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, as stated in Srimad Bhagvatam 11.2.42, bhakti paresanubhavo viraktir anyatra cha. Devotional service is so powerful that one who performs devotional service is immediately freed from all sinful desires. All desires within the material world are sinful because material desire means sense gratification, which always involves action that is more or less sinful. Pure bhakti, however, is anyabilasita sunya. In other words, it is free from material desires which result from karma and jnana. One who is situated in devotional service no longer has material desires, and therefore he is beyond sinful life. Material desires should be completely stopped. Otherwise, although one's austerities, penances, and charity may free one from sin for the time being, one's desires will reappear because his heart is impure. Thus, he will act sinfully and suffer. So here we see that chanting Hare Krishna, when done sincerely and enthusiastically, not only clears away the reactions to previous sins, and not only in this lifetime, but in previous lifetimes, but more importantly, it purifies the desire to sin. And that's the special benefit of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra over ritual performances that can nullify sinful reactions to a certain degree, but not the desire to sin. So an example of this is the Catholic ritual performance called it's called when the person goes and states to a priest the sins that they have performed, and then the priest gives them some penance that they can perform to nullify the sinful reactions. So it's called confession. Confession is one of the ritual performances in the Catholic Church. However, oftentimes they come back 1 month later or several months later, and again, they admit to performing sins. And again, they receive some type of penance, and usually saying a certain number of mantras, Catholic mantras, but then it can go on their whole lifetime of regular confessions. So, in the same way in Hinduism, you have different sacrifices or penances that you can perform to try and mitigate sinful reactions, but it doesn't purify the desire to sin. That's the main difference. Okay, so then Prabhupada therefore says, pure bhakti, however, is anya bilasita sunya. In other words, it is free from material desires, which result from karma and jnana. So, then, now we go on to text 18. As a fire burns dry grass to ashes, so the holy name of the Lord, whether chanted knowingly or unknowingly, burns to ashes without fail all the reactions of one's sinful activities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada writes, fire will act, regardless of whether handled by an innocent child or by someone well aware of its power. For example, if a field of straw or dry grass is set afire, either by an elderly man who knows the power of fire or by a child who does not, the grass will be burned to ashes. Similarly, one may or may not know the power of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but if one chants the holy name, he or she will become free from all sinful reactions. So there again, it's an amazing statement about the power and the glory of the holy names of Krishna, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the meaning of the mantra is a supplication to Radha and Krishna. And one asks Srimati Radharani and Lord Krishna to please engage me always in your devotional service. Well, that's the meaning of the mantra. But if one does engage in devotional service, then through that sincere service, all reactions of sinful life performed in this life or even previous lives are neutralized. And more than that, the desire to sin is also neutralized. So that means that you can live the rest of your life without committing any more sins, therefore you will not have any more karma. And devotional service is akarmic activity. In other words, pure devotional service is anya bilasita sunyam, jnana karmadhyanavrtam, anukulyena krishnanos silanam bhaktir uttama. Uttama bhakti, or pure devotional service, does not have any material reaction, such as reaction to sinful activities. There's no sin involved in devotional service. So you are engaged in what's called akarma, activity without any reaction, neither good or bad. Both good karma and bad karma are bad because you have to remain in the cycle of birth and death in order to get the reaction, either good or bad, of the karma. Whereas devotional service is akarma. It has no reaction at all, neither good nor bad. It simply gives you spiritual benefit. Okay, now we'll go to text 19. If a person unaware of the effective potency of a certain medicine takes that medicine or is forced to take it, it will act even without his knowledge because its potency does not depend on the patient's understanding. Similarly, even though one does not know the value of chanting the holy name of the Lord, if one chants knowingly or unknowingly, the chanting will be very effective. In purport, or commentary by Srila Prabhupada, in the Western countries where the Hare Krishna movement is spreading, learned scholars and other thoughtful men are realizing its effectiveness. For example, Dr. J. Stilson Judah, a learned scholar, has been very much attracted to this movement because he has actually seen that it is turning hippies addicted to drugs into pure Vaishnavas who voluntarily become servants of Krishna and humanity. Even a few years ago, such hippies did not know the Hare Krishna mantra, but now they are chanting it and becoming pure Vaishnavas. Thus, they are becoming free from all sinful activities, such as illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. This is practical proof of the effectiveness of the Hare Krishna movement, which is supported in this verse. One may or may not know the value of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, but if one somehow or other chants it, he will immediately be purified, just as one who takes a potent medicine will feel its effects, regardless of whether he takes it knowingly or unknowingly. Well, I am a living proof of what Prabhupada just explained here. I was a hippie in the 1960s, and later on, by Prabhupada's mercy, I became a happy by chanting Hare Krishna and giving up all that nonsense. Okay, text number 20. Shri Sukadev Uvacha, Shri Sukadev Goswami continued, "My dear king, having thus perfectly judged the principles of devotional service with reasoning and arguments, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu released the Brahmana Ajamila from the bondage of the Yamadutas and saved him from imminent death." Well, this is the superpower and glory of chanting the holy name of the Lord. So first of all, Ajamila, who was a son of a Brahmana, but who witnessed the sexual dalliance of two low-class persons, a man and a woman, became overwhelmed with lust, and the rest of his life he wasted his time in sense gratification. And therefore, but he had one son that he named Narayana, and that was his favorite son. It was his youngest child, and therefore, one day he was with his son in a garden, and the son was playing, and he was watching him, and all of a sudden, death came upon him, and the last thing he said was Narayana, calling out to his son. That also, during his lifetime, whenever he would call for his son, he would say the name of Narayana, which is the name of God. So he became purified gradually by always calling his name, the son's name, and then he says his son's name at the moment of death, not having any thought in his mind of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but by saying the name Narayana, especially at the moment of death, all his sins were eradicated, even though he was a big sinner. And right at death, the agents of Yamaraj came to take him to Yamaraj for punishment because he had a very long list of sinful activities. But the agents of Lord Narayana, Krishna, came and forbade them to take him. And then they challenged the Vishnu Dutas. They said, look, we have his record of sin, and such a sinful person should be taken to Yamaraj. But the Vishnu Dutas told them, no, he's a sinless person because he said the name of Narayana at the moment of death. And then they argued in return that, well, he didn't mean Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was calling his son. That has nothing to do with Narayana. Then the Vishnu Dutas came back and they gave this long explanation that whether he said it by accident and didn't mean he wasn't really addressing Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or he might have said it purposely, just calling out his son. The name itself acted because it's transcendental. It's not a mundane name or mundane vibration. And therefore he has become purified of all his sins, and you cannot take a pure person to Yamaraj. Well, they argued back and forth. Then the agency Yamaraj went to Yamaraj and asked him, what's the truth here? Is there something that we don't know about this Hare Krishna Mahamantra that can change a person's destiny in such a dramatic way? And Yamaraj explains to them that, yes, what the Vishnu Dutas have told you is true. And therefore, and then after that, the Vishnu Dutas spoke also and added more information. And thus, the agents of Yamaraj let go of Ajamil and put him in the custody of the Vishnu Dutas, and they gave him a second chance to purify himself and brought him back to life. So, and Ajamil witnessed this whole discussion and had a profound effect on him. And he immediately gave up all his sinful activities and desires and moved to Haridwar, and there began to chant the holy names of the Lord, chanting the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and he became purified and eventually went back to Godhead. Okay, so now we're on text 17, and it says, although one may neutralize the reactions of sinful life through austerity, charity... Okay, no, we read that. So then we're on text 19. And it says, if a person unaware of the effective potency of a certain... Okay, we read that. So text 20. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear king, having thus perfectly judged the principles of devotional service with reasoning and arguments, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu released the Brahmana Ajamila from the bondage of the Yamadutas and saved him from imminent death." Text 21. "My dear Maharaj, Parikshit, O subduer of all enemies, after the servants of Yamaraj had been answered by the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, they went to Yamaraj and explained to him everything that had happened." Purport. In this verse, the word pratyudita is very significant. The servants of Yamaraj are so powerful that they can never be hindered anywhere. But this time they were baffled and disappointed in their attempt to take away a man they considered sinful. Therefore they immediately returned to Yamaraja and described to him everything that had happened. Text 22. Having been released from the nooses of Yamaraja's servants, the Brahmana Ajamila, now free from fear, came to his senses and immediately offered obeisances to the Vishnu Dutas by bowing his head at their lotus feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraj. Well, just imagine how dramatic this experience is for Ajamila. He actually dies. He actually sees the agents of Yamaraj, who are fierce, and they tie a noose around his neck and they drag his soul out of his body, and they're going to take him to meet Yamaraj and be judged for all his sins, and then receive a terrible, sinful reactions in the hellish planets. And then miraculously he's saved by the Yamadutas because fortunately he named his son, his last son, Narayana, and he was calling for Narayana as he died. In other words, he said the name of Narayana without any material purpose. This is different than people who chant Vedic mantras like the Vishnu Sahasranam Sutram or the Purusha Sukta or other transcendental prayers, but they're saying those prayers because they're asking for something material from the Lord. So that is not pure chanting, and that's not pure devotional service. So they may nullify their material desires and improve their karma, but they are not free from material desires. So, in the purport, Prabhupada writes, Vaishnavas are also Vishnu Dutas because they carry out the orders of Krishna. Lord Krishna is very eager for all the conditioned souls rotting in this material world to surrender to him and be saved from material pangs in this life and punishment in hellish conditions after death. A Vaishnava therefore tries to bring conditioned souls to their senses. Those who are fortunate, like Ajamila, are saved by the Vishnu Dutas or the Vaishnavas, and thus they return back home, back to Godhead. So now we see the absolute benefit of becoming a devotee and engaging in active preaching. That if one tries to help others, this is called, in Sanskrit, this is called para upakar, doing good to others, not exploiting people for material purposes, but actually giving them genuine Krishna consciousness, which is the greatest welfare work in this universe, and by which a person can stop all sinful activities and engage in the devotional service of the Lord and learn how to use everything, their work, their money, their time, their intelligence, their house, their car, everything in the service of the Lord. And this way they become a Vishnu Duta or agent of the Lord and do good to others by bringing conditioned souls to their senses, by explaining several things. First point in preaching is explain to someone that there's a difference between their soul and their body, and they're not this body. They have an eternal soul, and therefore even after death their soul continues to exist. Most people think when you die, everything ends, and that's not true. That's a false understanding of life. So that's the first step in spiritual education. Second step in spiritual education is to understand that by engaging in activities meant to please the Lord, one is actually comes under the protection of the Lord. And this is an important point, because people are feeling, people are experiencing their previous karma by tragedies that happened to them. Sickness, accidents, old age, financial problems, legal problems, cataclysmic events, earthquakes, windstorms, flooding, things like that. And so all these problems that happen to them, they're happening without their pre-existing knowledge that it's going to happen. But these are reactions to sins from previous life. And there are also positive reactions. They might do very well in their business. They might receive a what do you call that? A government check from Biden or Trump for the COVID period. In other words, free money. So there's good and bad karma, but they don't know what the good or bad karma is until it actually happens. They can't predict these things. So what happens is that when one engages purposely in devotional service, Krishna will actually protect his devotee, as he promises. Konteya pratijanihi nami bhakta pranasyati in Bhagavad Gita, the 9th chapter. So this is the promise of Krishna, and it's a fact. He protected Prahlad Maharaj, and he protected Dhruva Maharaj, and he protected Yudhisthira Maharaj, and he protected Parikshit Maharaj, and he protected the Pandavas and Arjuna and Draupadi and so forth. So he'll also protect you, all of us, if we take to Krishna consciousness and devotional service. Okay, so then text 23. O sinless Maharaj Parikshit, the order carriers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Vishnudutas, saw that Ajamil was attempting to say something, and thus they suddenly disappeared from his presence. Purport. The Shastras say, for persons who are papista, very sinful, and durachara, misbehaved, or very unclean in their habits, who are against the existence of God, who disrespect Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, and who eat anything and everything, untimely death is sure. It is said that in Kali Yuga, one has a maximum lifetime of 100 years, but as people become degraded, the duration of their lives decreases. Pratyena payusa. Because Ajamila was now free from all sinful reactions, his lifetime was extended, even though he was to have died immediately. When the Vishnudutas saw Ajamila trying to say something to them, they disappeared, to give him a chance to glorify the Supreme Lord. Since all his sinful reactions had been vanquished, he was now prepared to glorify the Lord. Indeed, one cannot glorify the Lord unless one is completely free from all sinful activities. This is confirmed by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita 7:28. Yesam tvantagata papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvanda mohanir mukta bhajanti mam jitavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, and who are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. The Vishnudutas made Ajamil aware of devotional service so that he might immediately become fit to return home back to Godhead. To increase his eagerness to glorify the Lord, they disappeared so that he would feel separation in their absence. In the mode of separation, glorification of the Lord is very intense. Okay, we'll stop right there in verse 23, chapter 2, verse 23, and your homework for next week is to explain what this last paragraph of text 23 means, and especially to increase his eagerness to glorify the Lord. They disappeared so that he would feel separation in their absence. In the mode of separation, glorification of the Lord is very intense. So this is called Vipralamba Bhava. So I want you to research what this means. Vipralamba Bhava. Vipralambha. Vipralamba. Lumba. Vipralamba Bhava. Bhava. So you can look it up in the index of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you can look it up in the index of the 6th chapter. Let me see if it's in the 6th chapter. Index, 6th canto index. Vipralamba. No, it's not there. So you can look it up in the 10th canto, Vipralamba Bhava, or definitely Chaitanya Charitamrita, and explain with examples what this means. To increase his eagerness to glorify the Lord, they disappeared, meaning the Vishnu Dutas, so that he would feel separation in their absence. In the mode of separation, glorification of the Lord is very intense. Also, you can look up the story of Narada Muni and the story of Parikshit Maharaj. Vipralamba Bhava is explained there also. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions? Any questions, Daniel? Dhananjaya? Okay, well, we'll stop right there and continue again. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.